This is, by far, one of the best games ever made, and it is definitely the best at something, for being completely shit and underwhelming. Hello everyone, welcome to version 1.1 of my Resident Evil 2 Remake, Hardcore difficulty, Claire 1 scenario, no damage, knife only, S+, no audio walkthrough, and this is the full scenario. And just like my previous walkthroughs, I am going to be editing out any moment where I am not doing anything important. So if I'm going from point A to point B with no threats in the way, I'm just going to edit that out because after seeing that section and then having to repeat it again, you will understand how to get through that section easily. And also, I will be speeding up any moments that present with a lot of downtime, such as with the puzzles, because some of the puzzles are a little lengthy, and what would I be talking about when it comes to the puzzles? Nothing, because any visual learner will be able to understand how to solve the puzzles on this game. And that is how it's going to be for the editing process. And you might be wondering why I'm doing this updated walkthrough. Well, I did a walkthrough of Claire 2 and Leon 2, and I definitely came across some really good strategies for getting past certain sections that are also present in the first run of Claire and Leon. And as much as I do hate this game, and I definitely consider it to be the worst Resident Evil game ever made, alongside Resident Evil 1 Remake, letting something like that get in the way of my walkthroughs is definitely something I should not be embracing, and furthermore, I'll be able to talk more about my thoughts on this game and on the other Resident Evil games, especially when there is some new information revealed by Capcom about certain Resident Evil games, and there's some new gameplay that's been released for other Resident Evil games, and I think that's definitely something worth talking about. So this definitely gives me the ability to go on those different tangents. And so, here we are in this walkthrough. So we're just traversing the RPD building right now, and the RPD building in the A scenario is a lot better designed than the B scenario because Mr. X is not being introduced so early on, and some of the enemy placements aren't so stupid. This right here, you need to stand still and knife in order to do the lunge, so that you're able to knife this guy's legs and get past him without him actually doing the grab, although there is a rare moment where that can happen, where he can still initiate his grab when you lunge, but I think it's not something that's going to occur too frequently, so you can definitely commit to it, because just having to wait for him to come down the stairs can be time-consuming. And then this one right here, when you exit this door, you'll want to walk so that you don't cause this female zombie to go up the stairs, because she is the most random part of the RPD building, in my opinion, alongside Mr. X, because there is no telling where she will be whenever she's in this room, and at least on the A scenario, you have the ability to lock her in this room over here, because when you go through two doors, you stop her AI from breaching the doors. You can't do this on the B scenario. She just goes through two doors in order to get to you. You can't just go back through the spade key door and just stop her. She will just come through that door and then go through the spade key door to get to you. And I'm just trying to lure her in here right now, and I'm able to lure her over to the left side of the room, and then get past her, and then go through the spade key door in order to lock her in here, and she won't be a threat. And once again, the pathing on the zombies is absolutely horrendous in this game, and I don't know why, so you're having to play the waiting game a lot, and there's no telling how long these zombies will take to actually bust through the door. Sometimes they get through very quickly, other times they take quite a while to actually get through the doors, and I don't know why. But once I get through the spade key door, I will have successfully locked her inside that room, and I can progress onwards. One thing you can do in the A scenario after you do that specific action is go back to the bookshelves and move the leftmost bookshelf all the way to the right, so that when you come back later on with the lever, you will only have to move all the bookshelves once by grabbing the leftmost bookshelf. And this will make the RNG aspect of Mr. X less severe. And I'm just speeding up this one right here because what would I be talking about? I'm just going from here all the way over to here to board up these two windows using the two wooden boards that I picked up. And there's just this one female zombie, which she will despawn when you pick up the bolt cutter, so do not bother wasting your time with her. Just make sure that you're using the walk counter or the sprint counter against her in order to get past her. And I messed up on my walk counter right here, and I don't know why it didn't work just then. That was definitely the optimal range for her to actually do the attack. And then I thought she was going to do the second grab, because on hardcore difficulty the zombies will always do a second grab if you're very close to them. But I messed up again, and I'm going to have to bring her into this room, but once again she will despawn. And transitioning on ahead, because there's no threats, I'm just going to go through here, and then I'm just going to transition over to here. And do not do this. Do not try to pick up any more wooden boards as Claire. She will not need them. As Leon, you will definitely need to pick up wooden boards from this point onward. and you'll need at least one or two of them for the A scenario. You'll only get one for the B scenario, I believe. But right now, I'm just going to get inside this room. This zombie to the right, it's random what he chooses to do. There are times where he will block you off almost immediately, other times he will not. And if he blocks you off, this is pretty bad RNG because there is a high possibility that the two zombies out in that hallway will block you off. And when you are trying to open the door with the fuse, there's an invisible barrier blocking your way, and I don't know why. It's so dumb. If this was Resident Evil 7, you could just crouch under this door. There were no invisible barriers for doors like this. The garage door from the Baker household, you could crouch under it without any invisible barriers getting in your way, but for some reason it's different here. And back in this hallway, I'm getting past that window there because a zombie that's going through that window will despawn. And then because these two windows have been blocked off, the zombies are not going to be a threat. If these windows aren't blocked off, you will deal with a lot of zombies, and two zombies will actually spawn from those windows. And I didn't board these windows up in my original walkthrough because I wasn't thinking at the time and I was just kind of going with the flow. And I got a pretty good pattern for getting past them, but that is definitely not the way you want to go for an optimum route. But I pick up the first part for the detonator, and I am going to go to where the liquor is. And liquors on this game are pretty simple to deal with. Like, every single enemy on this game is very simple to deal with, but with the liquors, they're so forgettable because they're an enemy that is built entirely for stealth. And if you get into combat with them, they are such a douchey enemy, but as long as you get behind them and you knife them by stun-locking them, they are able to go down so swiftly. You cannot do the same trick in Resident Evil 3 Remake because of the way they've changed the knife, where you can't deal multiple knife hits in one slash. This game you can, because of the way the knife is programmed, where when your frame rate is high, you will deal additional knife hits with each knife slash. And on the PC version, if your frame rate is up to 120 FPS, you're going to be doing so much damage with the knife in one slash because of the fact that you're putting in multiple hits in that one slash. But when you sprint, the liquor does know where you are while you're inside the STARS office. But if you wait long enough, he will retreat back to that wall, typically, that wall I was looking at, but for some reason he wasn't there. Normally he's over there. I have no idea where he went, but he must have gone to the other side of the hallway. But not that it matters, because he's not going to be a threat anymore. Like, liquors on this game, as long as you understand how to deal with them, they'll never be a threat. Liquors on this game, and also the liquors in the original version of Resident Evil 2, I can never remember dying to them. Liquors in Resident Evil 5, however, completely different story, because they are far more dangerous, and I don't know why a lot of people prefer this design with the liquors, with the Resident Evil 2 Remake's liquors, and also like the original version of Resident Evil 2's liquors. I mean, admittedly, Resident Evil 5's liquors, even though they were blind, they still kind of knew where you were. It was almost impossible to escape back into a stealth status, and that's definitely the one aspect of Resident Evil 2 Remake's liquors I can definitely appreciate. But I just think with the liquors, because of the way they're designed, they're never really a threat. In Resident Evil 5, the liquors are actually very threatening, and speaking of which, this was a mistake. I was supposed to hug the left-hand side, but again, I wasn't thinking straight because I'm too cocky with this game, given how easy it is. And now we have G1 Birkin, and just like in my previous walkthroughs, I am going to start slashing him, and then when he starts transforming, I am going to get behind him. I'm going to stand right over here, and then once he's finished flailing about, I am going to back up. I was kind of holding it there for a little bit. Don't do that. And he always does his grab whenever you're right behind him at that spot, and then as long as you move correctly while you're aiming, he will not do a second grab. And whenever you're trying to repeat this loop, you will always want to make sure that you start the loop after he does a grab, because the chances of him doing a second grab after a grab is very, very rare. He normally does the second grab after any other attack that is not the grab, and that's what makes doing the loop on him a little dangerous. You always want to make sure you engage the loop after he does a grab, and once again, I've engaged the loop by using the sprint counter against him, where he will always attack early when I sprint into him, and he's down. And that might seem like a really cool fight, but if you're someone like me, you will definitely consider that fight to be utter garbage. And his hitboxes are pretty bad. If you haven't seen how shit the hitboxes can be with his grab, you have got to check out my future poor designs of Resident Evil 2 Remake video series. I got grabbed by G1 Birkin after he completed his animation. Like, he finished doing his grab, but because I was still kinda close to him, and the grab has a bit of phantom range to it, he grabbed me, and it's bullshit that is the case. So you've got to make sure that you are pretty far away from him, because that grab has a bit of phantom range, and the active frame period lasts a little too long. And that boss fight is utter garbage. You might think it's really cool because you can do it knife only, but basing it solely on that, you are definitely not the type to be judging games. Like, when they're saying this game is designed for knife only, but you're having to fight G1 Birkin like that, and you're having to do such a clever manipulation of his AI that is so gamey and it just doesn't feel very logical, or it doesn't feel like it complements the intended designs of this game, like Krauser from Resident Evil 4, because Krauser was actually well designed for knife only, given that the knife was a constant stun lock against him, and it was the weapon that dealt the most damage to Krauser, so you can clearly see the intended design choices with that fight. But this one, I'm just not seeing it. Having to do such a manipulation like that, you can definitely tell that the developers probably weren't expecting you to do this. And if you're just trying to not use that trick, the fight drags on for such a long time, and it makes the fight feel like it's not even designed for knife only. So either way, both scenarios, this fight doesn't feel like it's designed for knife only, even though he does go down very quickly. And furthermore, he just gets stunned so easily by the knife. And I'm just amazed. You'd think a weapon like the grenade launcher would actually stun this guy, but it just doesn't. And one of the main reasons why it probably doesn't is because, once again, this game is designed for knife only. And another reason why that's just a very confusing thing to comprehend is because it's a grenade launcher. The grenade launcher is meant to be this very powerful tool, yet it can't even stun a boss like G1 Birkin. And one of the main things that definitely complements that perception on Resident Evil 2 Remake and how you can clearly tell this game is designed for knife only is the guns. The guns on this game are completely useless, and they just take up way too much space. There is never any need to get them, and they just impact the flow of the game. Like, for instance, in order to get the grenade launcher or the shotgun initially, you have to go out of your way to pick up the weapon's key card, and then you have to go into that room with the lockers and then use the locker key in order to obtain the grenade launcher or the shotgun, but in the process you spawn additional enemies. So it definitely seems like that's not the intended way to play the game. And also, with the Magnum or the machine gun, you have to go into a room with a book in hand, grab the statue arm, combine it with the book, and then you have to place it on the statue in order to get a red gem, place it inside of a box, get the STARS key card, go into the STARS office, use it, and then you're able to gain access to the Magnum or the machine gun. And once again, that just feels like such a convoluted process that doesn't benefit the flow of the game, and you're just having to backtrack through areas in order to actually get these weapons, and when you're having to backtrack, it doesn't feel like it complements the overall flow of the gameplay. Whereas when you're doing this game knife only, you're not backtracking, and the game actually flows correctly. It's the same case with Resident Evil 1 Remake. Certain weapons on that game were almost pointless to get because going out of your way to get them, you were just having to backtrack through areas and just impact the pacing of the whole entire game, and you were having to spawn in additional enemies. So the developers didn't want you to use the guns. And furthermore, the guns in this game are very underwhelming. They just don't elicit the right amount of feedback to make them feel unique from each other. Like, the shotgun on this game, it might have a really good decap rate, but its range is pretty pathetic, and it doesn't even knock over zombies or any other enemy. That's not what I'm expecting from a shotgun. Resident Evil 4 shotgun knocked over enemies. Resident Evil 5 shotgun knocked over enemies. Resident Evil 7 shotgun knocked over enemies. Resident Evil 3 Remake shotgun knocked over enemies, but it was only as a substitute for a death animation, so it wasn't really a knockdown per se. But so many Resident Evil games have had this whole concept of the shotgun being able to knock over enemies. And in Resident Evil 7, you had the 100% decap rate with the shotgun when you were aiming the shotgun correctly. Like, the weapons in those games actually feel very reliable, and you can clearly tell that they're not designed for knife only because the weapons are actually needed, and there's so many diverse scenarios in those games that demand the use of your weaponry in order to benefit the flow of the proper gameplay in those sections. Oh, and by the way, that right there, how the hell did he know where I was? And just the way he busted out from that door, he did the fast animation rather than the slow animation. Whenever he does the slow animation, it means he doesn't know where you are, but he did the fast animation, so he knew where I was. And I think the only reason for that is because I picked up the lever. Whenever you pick up the lever, it causes Mr. X to teleport and the music to start playing, and that means he knows where you are, and I have no idea why they programmed in that trigger, but it's just completely unnecessary. What is the whole point of going through so many different areas and then successfully stealthing Mr. X if you're then going to say, oh, let's reward your stealth by not rewarding you for actually doing it stealthily? Like, that right there is so stupid. It's like with Outlast. Like, there are moments in Outlast where you successfully stealth a section, but then you just go into combat for no reason. And right now, he still knows where I am. Like, he's such an omniscient AI. What could have possibly prompted them to come into this room? And this is the kind of crap you have to deal with whenever you're doing the B scenario. And when you're moving the bookshelves in the B scenario, it's even worse because you not only have to contend with him, but you also have to contend with the female zombie or any other zombies that happen to get up in this room if you do the movements all wrong. And right now, I'm just having to circle him around this whole entire hallway area, and thank God there aren't any zombies in here, because on the B scenario you have to deal with Marvin and an Asian zombie. But when it comes to them, they aren't so much of a problem, because they're only a problem when you're trying to put in the 3 medallions. So when you first enter the main hallway in the B scenario, if there is a zombie very close to you, when you exit that fuse door, you are free to start moving into the west hallway. If there isn't, you need to lure one of the zombies near the typewriter that you use for saving, and you are able... Oh wait, there is no typewriter in the B scenario. There's only a typewriter inside that room after you use the 3 medallions. So what I mean is, lure them near the item box, and then you're free to go into the west hallway, because when they retreat back into a stealth status, they won't try to go all the way up to where the statue is. They will instead just go near the fuse door. That's what they normally do whenever you put them back into that neutral state. So in the end, they're not that much of an issue. But I'm up here, and Mr. X can come on this floor in the A scenario. I don't think he can come on this floor in the B scenario, because every time I've gone up to this floor in the B scenario, he never seems to come up on the same floor, and I'm always able to take that path that leads to that shortcut back to the safe room with Chief Irons' office. But when you're on the A scenario, you'll want to peek out from that door and check where he is. If he is all the way over there, you'll want to take this path and then bust through the floor. But when you do this, you will cause this zombie to get up. So as long as you get through this door very quickly, the zombie will not follow you. If he is not on that floor, you're free to take the shortcut. And I'm just going to speed my way back through this area over here. And I'm going to skip the Sherry section because that section is absolute garbage and I don't like it. Anyone can easily do a section build for a 2-year-old. Like, if you need any help with this interactive cutscene moment with Chief Irons, something's seriously wrong with you, so I'm just going to skip on ahead to this part. And Mr. X is going to be a threat right here, but he's just going to be behind you most of the time. Like, I can't believe people consider Mr. X to be scary. He barely has any moves. He walks around with such a moody stare like he needs to take a number 2. And he requires so many cheap artificial handicaps to feign lethality. Like, for instance, he has a bit of phantom range on that cammed animation that he does where he grabs you and throws you back whenever you try to run past him. And it's so bullcrap. And if I actually had the footage for this, if it hadn't been corrupted by this issue with a .mp4 file, then I would have gladly shown that in my Poor Designs Resident Evil 2 Remake video series. But sadly I was not able to, so I'll have to somehow get footage of that again. But going back to what I was saying, he's not only that bullcrap, but he also has the ability to be very omniscient and just know where you are. Like, at times you'll exit a room that he can't get into, and he'll be walking away, but when you exit that room, there are times when he just turns around for no reason. I had that happen to me in my Leon A Kill All run when I was exiting that gear room on the 3rd floor. So he's definitely a really crappy AI. And on the topic of his simplistic moveset, the reason why his moveset is so simplistic is because you yourself are so simplistic. Because Jill on Resident Evil 3 Remake has a lot more options at her disposal when it comes to dodging, for instance, it's forced the developers to make the enemies a lot more lethal. So Nemesis was actually very threatening in Resident Evil 3 Remake. He was very fast, he could kill zombies, and that's another thing as well. Mr. X can't even kill zombies. How are you supposed to be scared of something that just shoves aside enemies like he's a school bully? Like, it's so silly just looking at it. Whereas with Nemesis, he kills zombies when he runs. So you actually have to fear him, and you have to actually be very careful of him whenever he decides to run after you, because you have got to be very, very careful on your dodges. Ooh, this right here, this was very unfortunate. I tried to use the walk counter against the zombie, but it failed. It's the same situation I put myself into in the B scenario, so I was at least able to take that experience and learn from it, so that losing that knife wasn't so much of a big deal. But moving on ahead through that dead zone area of a sewer section, we're going to be dodging these zombies. Dodging them is so easy, and then moving on ahead, we're grabbing the T-bar handle, and this is where I'm going to make my save, because the sewers area is one of the most random parts of the game. And I've actually changed up one part of the sewer strategy. So that zombie that is down that long staircase that you need to lure upstairs in order to get past him by using the door that turns off his AI, well, I actually learned something new about this guy. And the thing is that I've seen this kind of behavior before, but there are times where he can literally see you, but he doesn't respond, and it's because his head is kind of looking upward, and then eventually he moves his head down and he can see you. So I was just experimenting with that to see if I could implement it in a potential strategy, and I happened to stumble upon an unusual behavior with him. If you had watched carefully while I was stood still, there was a sudden twitch in his idle animation as if he was swapping to another idle animation. In this new idle animation, he was bent a little forward and he was swaying a bit. That's the normal idle animation the enemies are in when they're not aware of your presence. Well, it turns out, when he is in that animation and you go back through the door, he starts to move. But when you go back into that room he's in, he goes back to where he was, but this time his back is to you. It's the same case with the other zombie. So using this new discovery, I was able to speed up the time it takes to get past him and remove all of the risk of trying to run past him when he's at the top of the stairs. And I'm able to take out these two zombies very quickly. And once again, whenever you remove the leg of a zombie and it falls into the water, it will always die. This is something important to note because in games like Resident Evil 6 and in Revelations 2, the enemies could move underwater, but not in this game. And that is one way of being able to kill zombies, knife only, without wasting too much durability. And here is another change I've made. So, in the B scenario, I ran past this guy, and then I got past this guy to grab the knife. Now I'm going to do it here. So, you get past that first guy very easily, and then this guy, you gotta hug the left-hand side and run so that you can distract him, and he'll go off in that direction, which will give you an opening. And I have two knives now, but I now need to go back up that lift in order to get the rook plug. And the problem is, there is no telling what one of the zombies will do. In fact, there's actually a second zombie that can be a problem. I had a moment where I was going to pick up the rook plug, but the zombie that was behind me, who was banging down the door, he was doing what he was supposed to be doing, but there is a second zombie. It's a guy who has a completely pale face, and he's bald, and he's blue. Well, he can actually move around, and I had this happen to me when I was doing Leon, but it didn't happen here, thankfully. But this guy right here, this is the guy that busts down this door whenever you go through this door for the first time. It's random what he chooses to do. But you need to get him in here and lure him back over here so that by the time you grab the rook plug, he's not going to be able to set up at the door too quickly. And even if he does, if you're lucky and he busts through the door very quickly, you will not struggle with these zombies. And, oh yeah, see right here? This is this guy. This is the guy that can move around. And he is a second zombie that can prove to be very random in what he does. And luckily right here, he did not try to bust down the door because his pathing betrayed him. So, for once, the crappy pathing of the enemies was in my favor. Now, this Geodol is not here, so I'm just going to come down. If he is here, just wait up on the ledge. He'll eventually descend down and just submerge, buying you enough time to get past him. And this guy here is still alive, and I'm just going to run past him, because he's not going to be able to set up in some kind of position where he's going to get in my way. And there is a zombie to my right as well, but he only becomes active once I pick up the other plugs. And now for the dreaded G-Adult room, which is very random when you're backtracking through this room, but when you're first entering this room, it works pretty well. So bait this guy to attack and then hug the right-hand side to get past his grab. And then this guy right here, wait for a second for him to move, and then when you move at the right moment, just before he decides to turn, he will not be able to attack you so quickly because he's in a stealth status in that point in his animation. And there is no second zombie you have to deal with. You only have to deal with a second zombie in the V scenario, thankfully. And you will not have to take off the legs of this zombie who is on the ground. And now for this part, it's random what these guys choose to do, and this guy decides to submerge, and I got to move very quickly before he decides to set up in a neutral state. Like see that just then? He set up in a neutral state and he was trying to stun me, but I got past him at the right moment, and then this guy, he's very far away. There's no telling what these G-Adults will do. There's even a moment where you can even have one just submerged underwater for no reason as you're going down this path, and it will stun you, and it will most likely grab you, because you do not get knocked back by much whenever the G-Adults emerge. This guy right here, he will not try to knock you down, because his unique animation for trying to grab you, like that scripted animation, when he's finished with that, he doesn't try to knock you back for some reason. But now that we have all the plugs, we can do the puzzle, but we still have to get past this one zombie right here. So you need to walk the moment you pass this door and hug the middle part of the room, or slightly to the right, but not too much to the right because I think this guy can see you when you're hugging the right. And the puzzle here is very simple. Just follow the order. And now we are able to do G2 Birkin, and using my knowledge from the B scenario, I got a pretty clean fight against G2 Birkin that was as good as my Leon 2 run. So, G2 Birkin is definitely one of my favorite fights in this game because it's a fight that's designed for knife only for all the right reasons, and it makes it very fun to replay because this fight takes skill. And a lot of people say he's the worst boss on this game, but they're saying that based on New Game Plus when they're just using all the weapons and they're not really understanding his behavior. But this guy, he's amazing. He is probably my favorite fight in the game. And Final Tyrant on Leon's campaign, he's another good fight, but I feel like with this one, it's far more demanding when it comes to skill. But all you gotta do for this first part right here is stand over by this spot and wait for him to attack 5 times. After the 5th hit, he will be behind this door, and you will be able to run right past him. And then from that point onward, if you hug the outer edge, you will get G2 Birkin to either do his slash very early, so you're free to mantle down, and he's taking quite a while to get to you, or he will try to melee you at the mantle point. But if he tries to do that, it doesn't matter, because you get iframes the moment you start the animation. And I don't just mean while you're just dropping down. Literally, the moment you've triggered the animation by just pushing forward on the left analog stick, like right here, before she's even dropped down, she has iframes, and I got iframes just then, and it allowed me to survive G2 Birkin's hit. And now that that's done, he's very delayed in trying to get down, and you need him to be very delayed. And grab that knife, and all you need to do right here is use the sprint counter to your advantage to get him to do his attacks early. If he does the jump attack, you've got to be very careful, because the jump attack is his worst move. It's so quick, and you have got to hug the right-hand side in order to get past it. There are moments when the jump attack can knock you back, but it doesn't do any damage, so don't worry about that. But the same strategy as before in my other scenarios, you've got to get G2 Birkin to do at least 2 moves while the crane is resetting, and then by the end of his second move, you can hit the button, and then when you get him to do an attack and you hit the button during his recovery frames, like at the correct moment in his recovery frames, he will always do the grab attack where he roars and he tries to attack you, but you can run right past the grab because it's a very fair move. But see right there, that's the knockback that the jump attack generates, and it did not do any damage just then, and this is his second move, so I know the crane is going to be ready, and now I'm going to be able to set up back here, and he's going to do his attack because I pressed the button at the right moment during his recovery frames. Look how good this fight is. This is such a great fight. I just wish most of the bosses on this game could feel as good, because G3 Birkin, G4 Birkin, I mean, I used to like G4 Birkin, but now he's just getting kind of old. Like, G1 Birkin, G3 Birkin, and G4 Birkin, and, you know, like, they're the ones that are definitely a little lacking, but the other bosses, like G2 Birkin, Final Tyrant, and I can't really say much about G5 Birkin because he's just a gimmick fight, but at least he telegraphs when you're supposed to knife him. They're really good fights, but unfortunately they're just not enough to redeem this game. This game is still very underwhelming in a lot of areas, and the bosses just don't salvage enough of that in order to maybe like this game. Like, this game had every aspect to really drive towards something, to actually have a lot of ambition, to actually have a lot of thought and a lot of complexity, but they just settled with the older model. And it's just such a shame because this doesn't properly utilize the Resident Evil engine to really make it stand out for all the right reasons. Ooh, this right here, this was a hairy moment, but I was able to utilize the crappy pathing to my advantage because I was able to get him to shift to the left and then hug the right-hand side in order to avoid him. And I'm able to make my save right here. So normally I would make my save before encountering that zombie, but I decided to be a little baller, and putting that save right there is actually really good. And then right here, you need to get behind this Ivy and knife him the moment he finishes his animation. Don't try to knife him too early because he doesn't get stunned while he's in this animation, which is one of the things I don't like about this anime. The Ivy is probably my least favorite enemy type in the game because not only is it no different to a standard zombie, but it has easily the fastest grab in the game, and judging the distance from it is very hard to do. And the good news is that I've at least managed to utilize strafing to know exactly when to move, but at the same time, they get so much range on their grabs, and the back grab that they do is horrible because the moment they do it, there's nothing you can do to avoid it. It's too fast, and it covers way too much range, and you move so slowly in this game that they'll always catch you. So every time you dodge the Ivy's first grab, you've got to knife it so that he doesn't do the back grab. But as I was saying, this game doesn't properly utilize the Resident Evil engine to really give it a lot more complexity in anything. And Resident Evil 7 is a significantly better game than this. Like, Resident Evil 7 satisfies all the requirements of being a proper Resident Evil game. It has complexity, the guns are actually useful, the enemy types are really good, they don't feel so bullcrap like the enemies are on this game, and the environments are very interesting, they're actually original, whereas the environments in this game just feel very boring, and you're not really doing much, and we've seen these environments already in the original version of Resident Evil 2. So just seeing a remake of an old environment just isn't really enough, and they don't even give you a lot of really nice details with the environments. Like, there's a lot of ambient noises that play in Resident Evil 7. There's all sorts of like machines operating, like fans, for instance. And the lighting is really good in Resident Evil 7. But like this one, the environments are just average at best. And then like the boss fights in Resident Evil 7 are significantly better than the boss fights in this game because they're actually like very complementary towards the whole aspect of Resident Evil 7 being designed with all the guns in mind. They have a bit of complexity to them so that only true Resident Evil players will understand the hidden mechanics. And then the DLCs further complemented the diversity that Resident Evil 7 embraces, and you were going into new environments, you were encountering new enemy types, you were being introduced to new combat concepts, like with Chris, for instance. You had the old system of Resident Evil 4 returning in the Not a Hero DLC, and then in the End of Zoe DLC, you had the ability to box enemies, and it was a different kind of combat system entirely. Like, the DLCs in Resident Evil 7 scream ambition, and they actually changed up the gameplay styles, and they weren't afraid to do so. They didn't try to stick with the same old model. They actually reintroduced old aspects from the older Resident Evil games and from Resident Evil 4 and the other Resident Evil games, and they just put it together into some really well-designed DLCs. And like I said, with the new environments, they're incredible to actually traverse. Like, I don't know why they got so lazy with the DLCs on this game. It's so disappointing. All they are is just reskins of Fort Survivor, and not even the Survivor mode that they put in, what was it called, the No Way Out scenario? Not even that was as interesting as the Night Terror DLC. At least the Night Terror DLC had cool music, and you had a really interesting way of using currency to your advantage to get resources, and there were so many different things to buy from the store. And then you had the boss fights with Jack. Like, that DLC is so much fun. And you had the Bedroom DLC, you had the 21 DLC, you had the Daughters DLC. Like, Resident Evil 7 has easily the best DLC content ever out of all the Resident Evil games, and I'm hoping that in Resident Evil Village, they'll bring back that same diverse content. They'll actually make the DLCs very interesting and get some new perspectives from each of the characters. But if they don't, that's going to be a very disappointing aspect. And then with the highest difficulty, Resident Evil 7 has a better designed higher difficulty than this game. All the highest difficulty did in Resident Evil 2 Remake is just increase the enemy health, damage, and speed, and they added the increment system, but the increment system is a completely redundant system. It's how I've felt ever since the older Resident Evil games. The rate at which you save with the increments is pretty much the exact same frequency as how you would be saving without the increment system. So overall, the highest difficulty in Resident Evil 2 Remake is just a very standard higher difficulty that doesn't really do anything creative with its difficulty, whereas in Resident Evil 7, they not only increase the enemy damage, the enemy health, and also the enemy speed, but they also rearrange the enemies so that they were in different positions, and they also rearrange the items, and then in the DLCs, they added new animations for the enemies. And then in the End of Zoe DLC, and I think this was also the case in the Not a Hero DLC, they added new traps. So Resident Evil 7 as a whole does higher difficulties better than this game. Like, again, like, why was this such a step down in quality, in ambition, in creativity? It makes no sense. And this is the second time they're utilizing this engine that has afforded them this many opportunities. And that lack of acknowledging the opportunities at hand when they were developing this game is one of the main reasons why I consider this to be the worst Resident Evil game. And you might be thinking, what about the spin-off titles? What about Umbrella Corps, or Operation Raccoon City, or Project Resistance, or any of those kind of games? I mean, yes, that is true. They are worse than this game, but they're spin-off titles, and spin-off titles don't have the same level of development as mainline Resident Evil titles, and this game is considered to be a mainline Resident Evil title, but at times it just feels like a spin-off title, and it doesn't really utilize any kind of new system to the Resident Evil formula that really makes it stand out as a mainline Resident Evil title. It's just a remake of the original Resident Evil game, so you can't really consider it to be a mainline Resident Evil title. It's just simply a remake. I mean, yes, this remake is very different. I mean, this game definitely stretched the margin when it comes to how you remake games, but it still doesn't change the fact that this game is just so underwhelming, and it didn't really offer a lot of creativity, and the whole aspect of knife only was another reason why this was very restrictive on the creativity. And I mentioned before that knife only might seem like a cool idea, but it's actually restricting in the long run because it limits the creativity of the developers to actually design very diverse scenarios or actually making the enemies very lethal. Like on Inferno difficulty in Resident Evil 3 Remake, they added the ability for zombies to do the any alpha grab where they do that long range grab, and you don't see anything like that in the hardest difficulty in Resident Evil 2 Remake, because if they were to put in something like that in Resident Evil 2 Remake, it'd be very unfair. Whereas in Resident Evil 3 Remake, because you had the dodge and the fact that that game was not designed for knife only, they were able to be more creative with what they were going to do with the enemies. And it's that kind of ambition and acknowledgement of the opportunities at hand that makes Resident Evil 3 Remake significantly better than this game. Like, Resident Evil 3 Remake feels like a more realized game compared to Resident Evil 2 Remake, which just feels like a prototype in its simplistic designs. And that's just not what I'm expecting, and one of the main factors that probably contributes to this is the fact that Kadoe-san directed this game, and he said that Resident Evil 2 Remake was the very first game he ever developed for the Resident Evil series, and it definitely makes sense in that regard because this game feels like something an amateur would make. Like, this feels like something a modder would make, and modders in the fan base of any game or in the community do not understand the professional processes involved with actually developing like a game that's suitable for the survival horror aspect or any other big aspect like that. Like, you know all those mods that people put for this game or for like Resident Evil 4 with like the hell mod? I forget what that mod was called in Resident Evil 4, but they just put like thousands of chainsaw guys in a single room, and it just takes away from the survival horror experience, and it's just such a big insult to Resident Evil 4, and it just fills the egos of everyone who thinks that Resident Evil 4 is an action game. Like, that right there is the biggest flaw with modders. They just aren't so professionally developed in their mindset to truly understand how to design their mods in a way that actually feels very professional. And speaking of mods, with regards to Resident Evil 2 Remake, the fact that it's filled with so many mods to just somehow add in some new kind of fun to the game, because this game is rather empty in the long run. Like, if a game needs mods to actually be good, then that is just a very big flaw on the game's part, and it's why I don't approve of mods, and I just feel like with the sheer number of mods that this game has received, it just further complements the idea that this game is just very empty, and it just didn't satisfy a lot of people's tastes. And, you know, like, I don't hear of any mods being developed for Resident Evil 7 that are actually, like, breaking the game in any way or just changing up anything in a stupid way. I mean, all they are is just aesthetic mods where you, like, for instance, have the characters being changed to, like, The Simpsons, for instance. Just stuff like that. Just minor mods like that. Like, Resident Evil 7, it's definitely clear that that game doesn't need any mods to really be good. It's such a fun game, and I absolutely recommend you play it. But this game, I just encourage you to be very ambivalent towards it if you're actually planning on getting this game. And with Resident Evil 3 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake is a very fun game. I definitely recommend you get it, even though the holes of Resident Evil 2 Remake are present within that game. And Resident Evil Village, I definitely am going to get that game. That game is definitely making all the right moves with how to actually be a Resident Evil game from a developmental standpoint. Like, I so need to do a review of the Resident Evil series when I get the chance, and I talked about this in one of my walkthroughs of Resident Evil 2 Remake. But it's going to be a true Resident Evil player's perspective on ... and then I picked the Resident Evil game, but I don't acknowledge it in the title, and I order my videos based on lowest to highest in the ranking process, and I think that's going to be a very fun experience, but with the time I currently have to myself, I don't think I'll have the time necessary to do it, but I think it's going to be a very fun experience. But going back to what I was saying previously, you know, with Kadoe-san being the director of this game and the fact that this was the first game he ever directed for the Resident Evil series, you can definitely see how this game became what it is with how simple it is. because only an amateur could make anything like this, and that's one of the main things that really makes me very disappointed about this game. But I'm going to stop right there with that tangent. I'll just move on to another tangent, because G3 Birkin is so easy. How anyone can struggle on this guy, I just don't know. But I'm going to talk about the new Resident Evil game coming out that's not Resident Evil Village, and it is Resident Evil Reverse. And as I expected, it looks really bad. Just like with Project Resistance, it feels very unfinished and unpolished, and it's just such a basic concept for a PvP mode. And what you're doing is you're in the RPD area, you're playing as the older Resident Evil characters. You're playing as Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield, Leon Scott Kennedy, Ada Wong, and you're playing as Hunk for some unknown reason. I don't know why he's there. And is that it? No, you're playing as Joe Valentine. I forgot about that. And I can't remember if there was anyone else, but it was a very limited roster, it seems. But essentially what's happening is you're all fighting against each other in a PvP setting. So it's a death match, essentially. I mean, I don't know if there are going to be multiple game modes coming with Resident Evil Reverse, but the whole concept is you're running around the RPD building all by yourself, and you're having to kill off everyone in order to increase your score, and the person with the highest score at the end wins. So it's just a very basic deathmatch concept. But what happens is, when you kill someone or you die, you transform into a BOW, and the kind of BOW you turn into is all dependent upon these virus capsules that you can pick up throughout the environment. And from what I've seen, you can turn into a Hunter Gamma, you can turn into the Fat Molded, you can turn into Nemesis, or the Super Tyrant in this game, and you can turn into Jack Baker as well. So it's an interesting idea, but it once again had the exact same problems as Project Resistance, where Project Resistance was so unbalanced, and a lot of the times it just felt like a button masher. Like, I remember some of the initial gameplay that they showed for Project Resistance of all these characters just wailing on this liquor, and they were just mashing the buttons, and it looks so bad, and it just looks so simple, it just looks so childish and just stupid, and it just didn't seem so befitting for Resident Evil. I mean, Resident Evil Reverse, to be honest, it looks better than Project Resistance, but I know for sure that it's going to be a very unbalanced experience, and each of the characters that you play as, they have their own unique skill set, and they have their own weapons, and Chris Redfield in Resident Evil Reverse, he's apparently considered to be the most broken character in that game, and if you want to hear some better thoughts about this from a professional gamer, check out a guy named Swingy Point. I think that's what his name is, but he really demonstrates just how powerful Chris is, and he really demonstrates some really good gameplay of some Resident Evil Reverse matches. But Chris has the ability to be invulnerable to lethal damage, so you can't kill him. You can put him down into the danger state, but you can't kill him for a couple of seconds. And then he also has the ability to deal high damage to BOWs when he's low on health. And then he also has access to the AMG-78 punch, and I'm just very confused as to why he has it. It just seems kind of silly that he would be the one to wield the AMG-78 when it was Joe Baker who had to wield it to be as strong as he was. But I just feel like with having Chris wield the AMG-78 in that game, it makes him feel very underwhelming. I don't get that part of it. That's the one thing that I felt really cringed about. But yeah, Chris Redfield is exceptionally strong, and it's going to feel like the exact same problem that Survivor's Mode had from Resident Evil 6. Survivor's Mode, if you don't know, is the worst multiplayer mode I have ever played in any game ever. It is easily the most unfinished, most poorly QA-tested multiplayer mode ever, and as I described in my Resident Evil 6 No Life Cube Lost walkthrough, it is the literal definition of cancer, laziness, and horseshit put all together, and you will definitely find the skull of the earth in that mode. And it's feeling like Resident Evil Resistance is going to... I'm sorry, not Resident Evil Resistance, and I'd better not call it that, because Project Resistance is the better name for it, because Resident Evil Resistance, or Project Resistance as I like to call it, does not deserve the title Resident Evil. But just to correct myself, Resident Evil Reverse, and I think I might as well just be calling it Project Reverse, even if the older Resident Evil characters are in there. It feels like it's going to have the exact same problems as Survivor's Mode. It's going to be so unbalanced. Everyone's just going to be cheesing each other with the unbalanced nature to that game. They're going to be spamming all sorts of abilities. And with the way Chris can just utilize his indomitable spirit, which is what the name of that move is, where he's able to avoid being killed, but he can be into the danger state. Like, stuff like that is really going to destroy the balance of that game. And furthermore, I don't know if there's going to be some kind of leveling system, and I've never liked leveling systems in multiplayer games, because what if you're somebody who is stepping into the multiplayer mode years later or months later? Everyone's going to be at such a high level, and it's going to be improperly accommodating for someone like yourself, and it's going to feel like it's not a fair match, and I never like that. It's why I don't touch Call of Duty. It's why I don't touch a lot of multiplayer games, because a lot of them embrace that kind of multiplayer design. I mean, co-op, however, like co-op in Resident Evil 5 and 6, I will gladly touch, because the co-op in those games is a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. And it's not level gated whatsoever, so there aren't any kind of arbitrary levels that you need to acquire at all, because you're doing co-op campaign sessions, and there's no such thing as level in a campaign. So that's definitely one of the main reasons why I love the co-op in Resident Evil 5 and 6. And co-op is definitely the one thing that Capcom seems to be good at, but when it comes to PvP in the Resident Evil environment, they're always so bad. And I'm just wondering, why is Capcom still trying to persist with this model? It's never worked. Why are you still trying to do it? And I understand that when Capcom is trying to utilize a lot of systems that a lot of like purist Resident Evil fans don't like, but I myself appreciate. That's something I can definitely appreciate. But when common gamers and people like me are hating on the PvP aspects of Resident Evil, why do you still put them in? Like, you've demonstrated, like, with so many Resident Evil games that have the PvP setting, that you just don't know what you're doing when it comes to balance, so stop doing it. That's definitely the one thing that I just don't want to see in Resident Evil. I want Capcom to innovate on the designs that are actually good. I want them to actually innovate on designs that complement what a Resident Evil game is when it comes to diversity, when it comes to differentiating itself from other game series for all the right reasons. But with Resident Evil 6's multiplayer and with the PvP settings, it just feels like Resident Evil's trying to differentiate itself from every other game in the worst possible way ever, and that's with its PvP settings. And I just think that is definitely one of my main concerns with Resident Evil Reverse. And I think I'll give it a try. I mean, I don't know if Capcom's going to release a public beta, but people have been in the closed beta, and the closed beta happened, I think, yesterday. I'm not too sure. But if they release a public beta, I'll definitely give it a try, and I'll probably live stream it, or probably not live stream it. Maybe I'll just do like some short clips, just like what I did with my Umbrella Corps First Impressions video. Because I think there's just a lot to be said about Resident Evil Reverse, much like with Project Resistance. But enough about that tangent. I've kind of skipped out on what I've been doing in this whole entire video so far, but for that part with the Ivies, that last part where you're having to wait for Sherry to open the door, you'll want to stay up and just go up the ladder. And when the timer reaches 8 minutes and 59 seconds, that's when you want to go down, because by then Sherry will have already unlocked the door. And if one of the Ivies grabs you, use your low durability knife to shake him off, and then save the rest of your high durability knives for G4 Birkin. And then for G4 Birkin, there's not much to really say because he's very easy to do. I don't even think I'll need to explain it. Like, if you want to understand how to beat G4 Birkin, check out my previous walkthrough of Leon 2 and... I'm sorry, not Leon 2, Claire 2 and Claire 1. And you'll understand how he works, because he's so easy. But I'm glad that he's easy. I'm glad he's not like G3 Birkin, because G3 Birkin's the worst boss on this game, because he just drags on for such a long time, and he's so easy. And any kind of easy fight that drags on for way longer than necessary, it's just not needed at all. Like, I would rather do a very short fight that's very lethal and very dangerous, like with Krauser, because Krauser can be very tricky at times, but he dies very fast, than doing some complete slogfest of a boss fight where you already understand how to fight him. And it's not even about skill at that point, it's all about patience. It's like with Salazar. Salazar from Resident Evil 4, he only ever did one move, and the fight dragged on for at least 9 minutes, but it just felt like you weren't doing any damage to him. He had way too much life, and weapons like the Magnum were so useless. Not even the shotgun was that damaging. And it's less about skill and more about patience, and unless you have a rocket launcher, it's just a miserable encounter. And G3 Birkin just feels like that, but at least with the updated strategies that I've found for dealing with G3 Birkin, I have a lot more liberties at my disposal when it comes to utilizing my knives. But of course with Claire, she needs 2 knives for this boss right here, and if you're going out of your way to try to melee G3 Birkin's entire body as Claire, you're gonna waste your durability easily, and that's why you gotta be very, very passive and just only knife the core on G3 Birkin's weak spots. And that's how it's supposed to go. And with Leon, it's different because Leon only needs 1 knife for his final boss fight, and you get a knife after G3 Birkin, so you can be as liberal with your knives as you want. But With this one, you cannot do that. But I think I'll just explain the main gist of this boss fight just because. I'll give a little summary. So when the fight first starts, move away from him, and then when he jumps down from the train, or when he just does a jump attack in general, after he does the jump attack, he will always do the flail attack, which you gotta run away from. Then he does the running attack, which you gotta get him to run into a wall, and then you knife him once, and then you try to get behind him in order to force him to do a backhand attack. And then what he does afterwards is, if he does the running attack, you can easily knife him during the recovery frames, but you can only knife him once. And then if he chooses to go on the wall, good. But every odd time he goes on the wall, he will always jump onto the train and then jump on you. Every even time he gets on the wall, he will always try to jump directly on you, so you gotta move out of the way. But this is the running attack I'm talking about. See? He has a lot of recovery at the end of this animation. That's why it's one of the best moves to punish. But he's going on the wall right now, and he's either gonna jump on the train or he's gonna jump on you. I haven't been keeping count. I think this is the even time. So he's gonna try to jump on me, and he's very vulnerable after the jump attack. You can knife him twice, and he always does the flail attack, like I've always said. It's so easy. And I originally liked this guy, but now I just think he's kind of old because he's a little too balanced. But I take him over G3 Birkin any day. G3 Birkin is horrible. I absolutely hate him. And I'll have a lot to say about Seraphim 17's perspective on Resident Evil 2 Remake, because I think some of the things he says, it makes me so angry, and it pisses me off so much when he's giving this game like so much credit, and it feels like he's just kissing this game's ass. And I know that probably stems from his lack of knowledge on Resident Evil and that he isn't a big Resident Evil player, but I don't think so. That's just how he feels, and I think he's adopting the same mindset as a lot of common gamers. And it's just a tangent I need to go on in my next walkthrough when I'm doing the updated walkthrough for Leon, because I just don't understand how someone like him can possibly like a game like this. And it just stems from the fact that he's just a very nostalgic gamer, and I think because he's so old, he's just missing the older generation of games. And that's exactly what I described in my Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War realism walkthrough on Mission 6. He just feels like a burned out gamer with modern games, and because his game kind of touches upon the older mentalities of Resident Evil, it just seemed to hit something within him. But I've never taken him to be that kind of guy, but I think he's changed. He's just become that older person, and I don't approve whatsoever. But G4 Birkin has been defeated. You just gotta wait for him to die out, and then we're gonna be taking on G5 Birkin, and it's just a gimmick fight. It works exactly the same way as in my Leon 2 scenario run or Claire 2 scenario run. Oh, I'm sorry, we're not taking on G5 Birkin, this is the A scenario. But that is the end of this walkthrough. Stay tuned for the future walkthrough. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.